Teo slams both hands flat on the mahogany dinner table so hard the crystal wine glasses shudder and the candle flames lean sideways. Every head in the room snaps toward him. The roasted centerpiece, the silver cutlery, the chandelier throwing gold light across three identical faces. Three pairs of dark, dangerous eyes now locked onto one trembling Omega who looks like he has just seen the end of the world. And maybe he has. "Stop the deal," Teo says. His voice does not shake. That is the terrifying part. "Stop it right now, tonight, before you sign anything." The silence that follows is the kind that has weight, the kind that presses down on your chest. Zaire Osei, the eldest of the three, the one who speaks last and means it most, sets his wine glass down with the slow, deliberate patience of a man who is used to being obeyed. His jaw tightens. His eyes drag from Teo's face down to the round, visible curve beneath Teo's green sweater. The pregnancy that has changed everything in this household over the last 6 months. And then back up. "Teo." His voice is low, controlled, the kind of calm that lives right next to fury. "Sit down." "I am not sitting down." Zaire's brother, Kofi Osei, leans back in his chair and crosses his arms. There is something almost amused in his expression, but his eyes are not amused. His eyes are reading Teo the way a man reads a contract he does not yet trust. "You walked in here in the middle of a dinner meeting," Kofi says, "with the heads of the park group watching, and you put your hands on this table like you own it." "Someone in this room is lying to you," Teo says, "and it is not me." The third brother, Damon Osei, is already on his feet. He is the youngest, but the fastest, always the one who moves before the other two decide to. He comes around the table and reaches for Teo's arm. Not rough, not gentle, somewhere in the urgent middle. "You need to step outside," he says quietly, close to Teo's ear. "Right now. Before this gets worse." Teo pulls his arm away. He looks past Damon, past Zaire and Kofi. He looks directly at the man sitting at the far end of the table, the one with the silver cufflinks and the pressed collar and the small, careful smile that has not moved since Teo walked in. Rashid Vance, their translator. The man who has been sitting inside every private negotiation for the last 4 months. And Rashid Vance looks right back at Teo with that same small smile and says absolutely nothing. That smile tells Teo everything. It tells him he is already too late, and it tells him he is not. And the difference between those two things is the next 60 seconds. "Hi, viewers," the narrator steps forward for just one breath. "Do you think Teo is making the biggest mistake of his life by going public with this in front of the Korean delegates? Or is staying silent the real mistake? Drop your answer in the comments right now." The park group delegates at the table exchange looks. Mr. Park Jin-ho, lead executive, silver-haired, the kind of man whose stillness costs money, places both hands flat on the table and watches. He does not intervene. He does not leave. He watches like a man who already knows the outcome and is waiting to see how long it takes everyone else to catch up. Zaire stands now. When Zaire Osei stands, rooms change. He is not the loudest man. He does not need to be. He is 6'3" of composed, immovable authority in a dark suit that costs more than most people's monthly rent. And when he rises from a chair, it carries the specific energy of a decision being made. "You have 30 seconds, he says to Teo. Say what you came to say. Teo's hand moves, instinct, to rest against his stomach, against the weight of what is growing there. 3 lives that belong to these 3 men. 3 reasons every word Teo is about to say matters more than his own comfort. More than the embarrassment burning across his face right now. More than the way Rashid Vance is still smiling. The terms you think you agreed to, Teo says, are not the terms in the Korean documents. Rashid has been giving you a different translation from what the Park Group is actually signing. You think this deal gives the Osai Group controlling shares in the Seoul Logistics Network. It does not. What you are actually signing gives the Park Group a 15-year extraction clause on your North American freight operation. Every port, every warehouse, every contract your family has spent 30 years building. Nobody moves. Damon's hand, still near Teo's arm, goes still. Kofi's almost amused expression dissolves into something harder and colder. Zaire does not look at Rashid. Not yet. He looks at Teo. Directly. Completely. The way he looks at things, he is deciding whether to believe. And his voice comes out quieter than before, which means it comes out more dangerous. How do you know this? It is not a question. The way he says it, it is not a question. Because I speak Korean, Teo says, fluently. And I have read every document Rashid has handed you for the last 4 months. And not once, not one single time, has the Korean text matched what he told you it said. Rashid Vance laughs. It is a short laugh, polished, the kind designed to make the person speaking look hysterical and the person laughing look reasonable. Gentlemen, Rashid says, turning smoothly toward the Osai brothers with the ease of a man who has rehearsed this exact moment. Your Omega is emotional. He is pregnant, he is tired, and he has clearly developed an anxiety around this negotiation that— Sit down, Rashid, Kofi says. Rashid stops. That is the first crack. The first sign that the ground under Rashid's feet is not as solid as his smile suggests. Kofi turns to Teo. If what you're saying is true, and I am not saying it is, then why did you wait until tonight? The signing ceremony is tomorrow morning. Teo feels the sting of that. He deserves to feel it. Because I only got access to the full unredacted Korean draft 2 hours ago. One of the Park Group's junior assistants left a printed copy in the second-floor bathroom. I do not think they meant for me to find it. I do not think they expected anyone in this house to be able to read it. Silence again. Mr. Park Jin-ho for the first time shifts in his seat. That small movement, that single nearly invisible adjustment of a powerful man who was not expecting this wrinkle, is the loudest thing in the room. Zaire sees it. Zaire sees everything. His eyes move from Teo to Jin-ho to Rashid, and in the span of 2 seconds, something shifts behind those dark irises. The shift of a man who has just reclassified a situation from unlikely to possible. Where is the document? Zaire says. In my room. I photographed every page. Get it. Teo turns toward the door. His legs are steadier than he expected. His heart is not. The baby shifts, a small rolling pressure beneath his ribs, and Teo breathes through it, keeps walking, reaches the doorway. He stops. He looks back once, not at Zaire, not at Kofi, not at Damon. He looks at Rashid Vance. Rashid's smile is gone now. What is underneath it is something Teo does not have a word for yet. Something that looks like calculation. Something that looks like a man deciding very quickly how many moves he has left. Teo walks out. Behind him, the sound of chairs scraping. The sound of Damon's voice, low and fast, speaking in a tone Teo has never heard from him before. The sound of Mr. Park Jin-ho saying something in Korean, and this time there is no Rashid Vance between the words and the room. Teo is already on the stairs. His phone is in his pocket. The photographs are on his phone. The proof is real. He knows it is real. He has read it 4 times and checked every word twice, and there is no mistake in his translation. None. But as he reaches the second-floor landing, as the light shifts from warm gold to the cooler blue of the hallway, one thought wraps around the back of his throat and will not let go. If Rashid has been lying to the Kings for 4 months, then someone told Rashid what to lie about. Someone gave him the script. Someone on the inside knew exactly what to change and what to leave the same, and how to make a document look clean when it is rotten underneath. Teo's hand closes around his phone. His mind goes, very slowly and very clearly, to every person in that house who had access to both the English and the Korean versions of the deal documents. The list is short, and one of the names on it makes Teo's blood go cold. He does not run. He does not panic. He walks down the hallway toward his room, one hand against the wall, and by the time he reaches his door, he has already decided that getting the photographs to Zaire is only the first step. Because there is a second document, one Teo has not mentioned yet. One he found folded inside the back cover of the printed draft. A wire transfer receipt, dated 3 weeks ago, and the name on the receiving account is not Rashid Vance. Teo's fingers are not shaking when he unlocks his room door. They should be. Everything in his body is telling them to shake, and he is refusing to let them. He pushes inside, closes the door behind him, clicks the lock. The room is dark. He does not turn the light on. He crosses to the nightstand by memory, opens the drawer, pulls out the folded paper he tucked beneath his extra phone charger 2 hours ago, and holds it in both hands. The wire transfer receipt. He read it 11 times before dinner. He has every number memorized. The amount, $460,000, moved in 3 separate installments over the last 6 weeks, and the destination account registered under a shell company with a sole address. But the signatory on the approval side, that is the part that turns Teo's stomach. The signature matches a name he knows, a name attached to someone inside the Ose operation. Not Rashid. Someone with far more access than a hired translator. Someone who would never appear on the front side of any scandal, because they have spent years making sure their fingerprints stay invisible. Teo folds the receipt back along its original crease lines. He slides it into his front pocket, directly against his body. Then he opens his phone and pulls up the photographs, all 19 of them, sharp and clear, every page of the Korean draft. He is about to text them to Zaire when the knock comes. 3 knocks, quiet, not urgent sounding. The specific rhythm of someone who does not want to be heard from the floor below. Teo does not move. Teo. Damon's voice, low through the door. It's me. Open up. Teo crosses to the door, undoes the lock, and Damon steps inside before the door is fully open. He is not wearing his dinner jacket anymore. The top button of his shirt is undone. His eyes move around the room in one fast sweep, old habit, trained reflex, and then settle on Teo. "Are you okay?" Damon asks. And the way he asks it is not how men in his family usually ask things. There is no edge to it. There is just something open, something that costs him to show. "I am fine," Teo says. "What is happening downstairs?" Zaire sent the park group to the guest lounge. Kofi has Rashid in the study. It is not a pleasant conversation. Damon's eyes drop to Teo's pocket, to the visible fold of paper pressing through the fabric. What else do you have? Teo looks at him for 3 full seconds. He pulls out the receipt. He watches Damon's face as he reads it. He watches the exact moment the numbers land. Damon goes very still, the way all 3 brothers go still when something hits them hard, a complete and total absence of motion that is somehow louder than any reaction. Then Damon looks up. "Where did you get this?" Damon says. "It was inside the back cover of the document I found in the bathroom, hidden inside the cardboard backing. Someone printed this and tucked it away and then left the whole package somewhere they thought was safe." "Or somewhere they wanted it to be found," Damon says. Teo had not considered that. Now he cannot stop considering it. Damon folds the receipt with careful hands and holds it. "The signature," he says. "You recognized it." "Yes." "Say the name." Teo says the name. Damon closes his eyes, just for a moment, just long enough for Teo to see the weight of it land across his shoulders. Then his eyes open, and they are clear and focused, and something behind them is moving fast. Zaire needs to see this, now, before Kofi does something in that study that we cannot walk back. "I know." Teo picks up his phone. "I also have the full Korean draft photographed, all 19 pages. Send them to me. I'll pull them up on the study system so all 3 of us can review them side by side with Rashid's original English translations." Damon is already moving toward the door. He stops with his hand on the frame and looks back at Teo. And the look carries something complicated in it. Something that lands in the space between guilt and protectiveness. "You should have told us sooner." "I did not have proof sooner," Teo says. "And without proof, I was just a pregnant Omega interrupting a billion-dollar deal. You know that." Damon does not argue. That silence is its own kind of answer. He leaves. The door clicks shut. Teo stands in the dark room and puts his hand on his stomach and breathes. The baby moves, that same slow rolling shift. And Teo thinks, not for the first time tonight, that there are 3 people in this house whose future he is holding in his hands right now. 4, if he counts himself. He is trying to count himself. He sends the photographs and follows Damon out. The hallway is quiet. The house below carries muffled sound, voices, movement, the particular tense energy of a controlled space coming close to its limit. Teo reaches the top of the stairs and pauses. From the study down the hall behind a closed door, he can hear Kofi's voice. Not the words, just the tone. The tone that says someone in that room is about to learn exactly how far the Ose patience goes. And then he hears something else. From the guest lounge, on the opposite side of the house, he hears Mr. Park Jin-ho speaking quietly on a phone call. He is speaking Korean. Fast, careful Korean. The kind people use when they are condensing urgent information into as few words as possible. Teo speaks enough to catch 3 phrases. The first phrase means, "It has been found." The second phrase means, "Move before morning." The third phrase is a name, not Rashid's name, the same name on the wire transfer receipt. Teo does not move. He stands at the top of the stairs, hand tight on the railing, and the house below him suddenly feels less like a home and more like a board where every piece has been in play far longer than he knew. Someone set this up from both sides, and both sides just found out the middle is gone. By the time Teo reaches the study door, the voices inside have stopped. That is worse than the shouting. The stopping means something was said that ended the room. The kind of sentence that takes all the air out of a space and leaves nothing behind it. Teo knocks once and pushes the door open. Rashid Vance is sitting in the leather chair across from Kofi's desk. His cufflinks are still perfect. His collar is still pressed. But his hands, resting on his knees, are too still in the way that hands get when their owner is working hard to keep them that way. Kofi stands behind the desk, both palms flat on the surface, leaning forward. Zaire stands at the window, back to the room, hands clasped behind him. Damon is already there, standing near the bookcase with Teo's photographed documents pulled up across the study monitor. 2 screens, side by side. Left screen, the English translations Rashid submitted over 4 months. Right screen, Teo's photographs of the actual Korean text. Nobody speaks when Teo enters. Rashid looks at Teo, and this time, there is no smile. "Sit down, Teo," Zaire says from the window. He is not turned around. He does not need to. The command is not harsh. It is the voice of a man managing multiple moving pieces at once and needing everyone where he can track them. Teo sits in the chair closest to the door. He keeps his hand in his pocket, folded over the receipt. Kofi points at the right-hand monitor. "Walk me through it," he says to Teo. "Page by page, not a summary. Walk me through it." Teo stands back up. He moves to the screen. He starts at page 1. His voice is steady, and his Korean is precise, and he does not rush, and he does not soften anything. He gives them every discrepancy. 7 in total. Not small clerical errors, not the kind of thing that could be explained by dialect or nuance, but structural replacements. Whole clauses reversed, rights replaced with obligations, protections rewritten as liabilities. The kind of changes that require specific legal knowledge and the deliberate decision to destroy rather than serve the client you were hired to protect. When he finishes, the room holds its breath. Then Rashid says, "You are an Omega translator, working a side contract. You have no certification in international commercial law. Nothing you just said is admissible in any binding—" "Nobody asked if it was admissible," Kofi says. His voice is quiet. That is not a good sign from Kofi. Quiet from Kofi is the step before the room changes shape. "I am asking if it is true." Rashid says nothing. Kofi straightens up slowly. He smooths his jacket. He looks at Rashid the way a man looks at something he has already decided the fate of. "You have been in this house," Kofi says, "sitting at our table, eating our food, traveling on our jet for 4 months. And the whole time, Kofi," Zaire says, still at the window, one word. Kofi stops. Zaire turns around. He crosses the room in 5 steps and stands in front of Rashid and looks down at him and says, in a tone so controlled, it sounds almost gentle, "Who gave you the instructions?" Rashid's jaw tightens. "This does not get better by staying quiet," Zaire says. "You understand that. You are a smart man. You have always been a smart man. So understand what I am telling you right now. The only path that ends well for you tonight is the one where you give me a name." Rashid looks at his hands, and then, slowly, like a man lowering something heavy, he looks up. "I was told," Rashid says, "that the deal was already decided, that my role was to smooth the language so there would be no friction at the signing. I was told everyone at this table had agreed to the real terms months ago and that the English versions were just theater, diplomatic courtesy." "Told by who?" Zaire says. "By the same person who wired the money," Rashid says. Teo pulls the receipt from his pocket and sets it on the desk. Rashid looks at it. Something in his face shifts. Not surprise, something closer to relief. The relief of a man who has been holding a dangerous thing alone and just watched someone else pick it up. That is the account, Rashid says. That is where the payments came from. I did not know the full structure. I knew the name. That was enough to tell me not to ask questions. Zaire picks up the receipt. He reads it. He passes it to Kofi without a word. Kofi reads it. He passes it to Damon. Damon already knows. His expression does not change. He passes it back to Zaire. Zaire folds it once, precise and flat. He looks at Teo. Not with gratitude. Not yet. With something harder to read. The look of a man recalculating a situation at speed, repositioning every piece on the board, and arriving somewhere that does not feel like solid ground. Damon, Zaire says, stay with him. He does not look at Rashid when he says it. He does not need to. He walks to the door. Kofi follows. They both stop at the threshold, and Zaire looks back at Teo and says, "Come with us." And there is something in those 3 words that Teo cannot fully name. Not warmth exactly, not apology, but the weight of a man who has just realized how much he missed and is not done processing it yet. Teo follows them into the hallway, and at the far end of the hall, the guest lounge door is open. The guest lounge is empty. Mr. Park Jin-ho is gone. His tea glass is still on the table, still warm. His jacket is folded on the arm of the chair. But the man is gone. Zaire stares at the empty room for exactly 3 seconds. Then he takes his phone from his pocket and makes a call. And the voice that answers on the second ring is not from inside the house. Kofi turns to Teo and says, very quietly, "How long ago did you hear Jin-ho on the phone?" 12 minutes, Teo says. Kofi nods once. He says nothing else, but his eyes say something Teo has never seen in them before. Something that looks almost like fear of what happens next. And in the guest lounge, on the armchair where Jin-ho's jacket is folded, Teo can see the corner of something white. A small card, tucked beneath the jacket's lining. He crosses the room and picks it up before either brother can tell him not to. He reads it. He reads it twice. He turns and looks at Zaire. "It is not just the deal," Teo says. His voice is steady again, that same terrifying steadiness from the dinner table. The one that comes not from calm, but from having run out of room for panic. They were never here for the deal. The deal was the cover. What they actually needed was to get someone inside this house. And they did. Zaire takes the card from Teo's hand without a word and reads it in 2 seconds. His face does not move. That is the most frightening thing about Zaire Osei. The way catastrophic information lands on him without a ripple, absorbed completely, processed somewhere deep and invisible, emerging only as action. He passes the card to Kofi. Kofi reads it, and his expression does exactly the opposite. It shifts, sharpens, goes through 3 rapid changes that Teo has learned to read as anger, calculation, and resolve, in that order. "How long has someone been inside?" Kofi says, not asking Teo, asking the house. Zaire is already walking, long strides, no wasted motion, heading toward the back staircase that leads to the building's security floor. The part of the house that guests do not see, that most staff do not access, that exists specifically for moments the Osei brothers trained their whole lives to handle. Teo follows without being told to. He does not know why he follows. He knows this is not his floor. He knows that whatever is about to happen in the next 20 minutes belongs to a world he has spent 6 months living beside without ever fully entering. But the baby shifts inside him And Teo thinks, these walls are my children's walls too. That thought moves his feet. The security floor is 3 monitors, 2 hard lines, and 1 person. Aurelius Banks, their head of internal surveillance. A wide-shouldered man in his late 30s who has the specific calm of someone who has seen everything and chosen to only react to the things that actually matter. He is already standing when Zaire enters. He already has something on the center screen. I was about to come find you, Aurelius says. He does not say it with alarm. He says it the way a man delivers information he has been holding with both hands. We have movement in the East Wing archive room. Started about 9 minutes ago. Someone accessed the physical file storage. Who has that key? Zaire says. 4 people in this house are authorized, Aurelius says. One of them is currently in the study with Damon. One of them is standing next to you. He means Kofi. One of them is you. And the 4th? He turns to the monitor, pulls up the corridor feed, is her. On the screen, in the grainy green-gray of the night vision feed, a figure moves along the East Wing corridor. Small, precise movements, dressed to blend into the house, moving with the kind of quiet that only comes from knowing a space well. Teo looks at the screen. He knows that walk. He knows the way those shoulders move. He knows the specific tilt of that head when its owner is concentrating. He has worked beside this person for 3 months. He has eaten lunch with this person. He has asked this person which Korean phrase is more formal, which one carries more respect, laughing together over small translation debates that now feel like rehearsals for something Teo never understood. He says the name out loud, and the room goes very still. Zaire looks at Teo. You are certain? I am certain, Teo says. Kofi is already on his phone. He is not calling anyone inside the house. The conversation is fast and clipped, and ends in under 30 seconds. And when he puts the phone down, his jaw is set in the way that means a door just closed somewhere, and it will not open again from the outside. She does not leave the property, Zaire says to Aurelius. Not a request, not loud, just a fact, delivered into the room and left there to become real. Aurelius nods and turns back to his monitors. Zaire looks at Teo for a long moment. Not the calculating look from the study, not the controlled fury look from the dinner table. Something different. Something that lives in a quieter register, harder to name because it is rarer. You understood all of this, he says. The documents, the receipt, what Jinho said on the phone. You have been carrying this alone tonight. I did not have a choice, Teo says. You did, Zaire says. You could have stayed in your room. You could have decided it was not your problem. Teo meets his eyes and says nothing, because the answer to that is obvious, and they both know it. These are his children growing inside him. There is no version of that sentence where the danger to these men is not also the danger to them. Zaire looks away first. He picks up the card again and reads it once more, and sets it face down on the console. The signing is at 9 tomorrow morning, he says. We have 8 hours. 8 hours to do what, exactly? Kofi says. To find out how deep this goes, Zaire says. Jinho is already moving. Whoever sent him will know within the hour that the deal has been compromised. Which means they will try to complete the secondary objective tonight. The archive, Kofi says. The archive, Zaire confirms. Teo's hands press against his stomach again. He does not mean to do it. It is just where his hands go now, when something frightens him enough that his body moves before his mind catches up. Damon's voice comes through Zaire's earpiece. Teo can hear the thin sound of it from 2 feet away. He cannot make out the words, but he can read Zaire's face as they land. And what he reads there is not good. Zaire pulls the earpiece out and looks at both of them. Rashid is gone, he says. Kofi stares. Damon was in the room. Damon stepped out for 40 seconds to take my call, Zaire says. The study window was unlatched. He pauses. It was unlatched from the inside, before Teo ever brought him in there. Rashid had planned for the conversation. He sat in that chair, answered their questions, gave them just enough, and the whole time the window behind the bookcase was already open. He was never cornered. He was buying time. For what? For who? Teo looks at the monitor where the East Wing corridor feed is still running, and the figure he named is no longer visible. She reached the archive room. The door is closed. Whatever she came to take, she is taking it right now. And somewhere outside this house, a car with no plates is waiting in the dark. Teo turns to Zaire and says, "If she gets out with whatever is in that room, she will not get out," Zaire says. But when he says it, for the first time tonight, Teo hears the one thing he has never heard in Zaire Osei's voice before. Doubt. Zaire moves first, and the others fall in behind him, like the world rearranges itself around his direction. He takes the East Wing corridor at a controlled pace, not running, but the kind of deliberate fast walk that covers ground without announcing itself. Kofi is 2 steps behind him on the left. Teo, who should not be here, who knows he should not be here, is somehow still moving with them, hand pressed to the side of his stomach, because every step away from this feels more dangerous than every step forward. Aurelius stays on the monitors. His voice comes through Zaire's earpiece, low and steady, tracking the feed. The corridor is dim, wall sconces on low for the night cycle. The carpet swallows footsteps. Somewhere ahead, behind the archive room door, something is happening that will decide the shape of tomorrow morning. Zaire stops outside the door. He does not reach for the handle. He stands for 2 full seconds and listens, the way a man listens who has trained himself to read silence the same way other people read rooms. Then he opens the door. The archive room is long and narrow. Floor-to-ceiling shelving on both sides, labeled binders, hard copy contracts going back 15 years. The physical record of everything the Osei Empire has built and protected and fought to keep private. In the center of the room, at the standing work table, under the single overhead light, is Nadia Eze. She is 31 years old. She has worked in the Osei household for 3 years as a documents coordinator, which means she touches everything. Every contract, every NDA, every piece of paper this family generates. She has always been quiet, efficient, invisible in the way that deeply trusted people become invisible, present in every room without ever being the subject of any suspicion. She has a leather folio open on the table in front of her. Inside it, 3 sets of documents, neatly stacked. She looks up when the door opens. She does not run. She does not perform surprise. She closes the folio, not fast, not slow, just a clean and deliberate motion. And she looks at Zaire the way you look at someone you have been waiting to face for a long time. "Nadia," Zaire says. "Zaire," she says. That is all that gets exchanged for the first 5 seconds. 2 people who have shared the same professional space for 3 years looking at each other across a room and a distance that cannot be measured in feet. Kofi moves to her right. She does not look at him. She keeps her eyes on Zaire. "How long?" Zaire says. Nadia sets her hands flat on the folio. She does not answer immediately. She seems to be making a decision, not whether to answer, but how much truth to deliver at once. 14 months, she says. The air in the room changes. 14 months. That is before the Korean deal, before Rashid, before any of what tonight has been about. 14 months means this started while Teo was still just a contract translator, brought in for a single conference, before the heat cycle that changed everything, before the pregnancy, before the 3 lives that are now pressing against the inside of his ribs. 14 months means the Osei brothers have been living inside a house that was already open from the inside, and they never felt the draft. "Who approached you?" Zaire says. "A man named Seo Jun-ho. He works 3 levels below Jin-ho on the Park Group structure. He is not listed on any of their official corporate documents." Nadia's voice is level, almost clinical, like someone delivering a briefing they memorized. "He told me the Park Group had been watching the Osei operation for 2 years, and that the partnership was inevitable. He told me my role was to ensure the documentation was ready for a smooth transition. He told me nobody would be hurt." "He lied," Kofi says from her right. "Yes," Nadia says simply. "He did." Teo watches her face when she says it. There is no collapse in it, no visible grief, but there is something, a tightness at the corners of her eyes, a breath held a half-second too long, that tells him she believed Seo Jun-ho for longer than she should have, and that the moment she stopped believing him is not tonight. "What is in the folio?" Zaire says. "The original incorporation certificates for the North American freight operation, the founding trust documents for the Osei family holding structure, and the 3 letters of beneficial ownership that prove the freight network cannot be legally extracted from the family trust without a unanimous vote of all 3 brothers." She pauses. "I was told to remove them from this house tonight, so that by the time the signing was contested, the physical originals would be unavailable for verification." "Without the originals," Kofi says slowly, "a court challenge would take 18 months minimum," Nadia finishes, "possibly 24. Enough time for the Park Group's extraction clause to begin execution under the signed deal. By the time it was challenged and overturned, they would have liquidated enough of the freight operation to make recovery meaningless." It is a long, cold silence. Teo thinks about the word patient. He thinks about 14 months of patience and what it costs to build something that destructive that slowly, from the inside of a house that trusted you. Zaire steps forward and picks up the folio. Nadia does not stop him. She takes her hands off it and steps back and looks at the floor for the first time tonight. And there it is. The thing underneath the clinical voice. The thing she has been holding at a distance. Not defiance, not bravado. Just the particular exhaustion of someone who has been playing a role for so long that stopping feels less like relief and more like falling. "There is one more thing," Nadia says. She is still looking at the floor. "Seo Jun-ho is not outside waiting for me. The car they promised is not coming." She looks up. Her eyes are dry, but barely. "I found out 3 days ago that once I completed the retrieval, I was going to be removed. Permanently. Because I know too much, and I am not Korean. And I was never going to be included in what comes after." She looks directly at Zaire. "So, I want to make a different deal." The room holds its breath. Teo looks at Zaire. Zaire's face gives away nothing, but his right hand, the one not holding the folio, opens and closes once at his side, a small and almost invisible motion that Teo has learned to recognize as the physical sign of Zaire thinking faster than he is speaking. "What do you have?" Zaire says. "Everything," Nadia says. 14 months of communications. Every instruction Seo Jun-ho gave me. Every document I was asked to prepare or redirect or delay. Bank records, encrypted messages. I kept it all." A pause. "Because I knew from month 3 that the only way I survived this was if I had something they wanted more than they wanted me gone. Kofi makes a sound that is not quite a word. It lands somewhere between disbelief and reluctant admiration. Zaire looks at Nadia for a long time. Then he says, "Sit down." And Nadia Eze sits down. And Teo watches Zaire Osei set the folio on the shelf behind him. Safe. Recovered. The founding documents of everything his family built. And turn back to the room with the specific expression of a man who came in looking for a traitor and found something far more complicated. Outside, somewhere past the estate walls, tires move on a dark road. A phone rings and goes unanswered. And a man named Seo Jun-ho, sitting in a car 3 miles from the property, checks his watch and realizes the person he sent inside is not coming back out. He does not know yet what that means. He is about to find out. The phone in Zaire's hand rings before he can make his first call. He looks at the screen. Unknown number. Korean area code. He answers it on the second ring and puts it on speaker without being asked. And the voice that comes through is calm and accented and completely unbothered. The voice of a man who does not yet know the board has flipped. Mr. Osei. Seo Jun-ho speaks English the way people do when they learned it for business. Precise, formal, with the specific confidence of someone who has never had to be afraid in a conversation. I understand there has been some confusion tonight regarding the translation of our agreement. I want to assure you that any discrepancy is a matter of— Stop, Zaire says. Seo Jun-ho stops. We have the documents, Zaire says. All of them. We have the wire transfer records. We have 14 months of your communications with a member of my household. We have the names, the account numbers, and the instructions you gave. And we have the person you were planning to remove tonight sitting in a room in my house. Alive. Talking. A pause. Measured. Deliberate. The pause of a man who knows exactly how much silence costs. So when you speak to me right now, understand what you are speaking into. The line is quiet for 4 full seconds. When Seo Jun-ho speaks again, the calm is still there, but it is thinner now. You are a careful man, Mr. Osei. That is something I underestimated. You underestimated more than that, Zaire says. You underestimated who was in this house. He looks at Teo when he says it. Teo does not look away. Seo Jun-ho says, "What do you want?" "What I want," Zaire says, "is for you to sit exactly where you are. Because the people I called 20 minutes ago are already moving. And the only version of tonight that ends without complete exposure for the Park Group and every subsidiary connected to this operation is the version where you cooperate fully before sunrise." Another silence. Longer this time. "And Mr. Jin-ho," Seo Jun-ho says carefully, "Mr. Jin-ho left this property without authorization during an active business arrangement," Zaire says. "That makes him a flight risk in a fraud investigation, which means every account connected to the Park Group's North American operations gets flagged by morning. Unless—" he lets the words sit. "Unless we resolve this privately. Tonight." The line goes quiet again, and this time it stays quiet long enough that Kofi shifts his weight, and Nadia, still seated at the archive table, pulls her knees together and watches the phone like it is a lit fuse. Then Seo Jun-ho says, "I will need 1 hour. You have 40 minutes, Zaire says. And Jun-ho." His voice drops 1 register. Not louder, never louder, just closer to the floor where the real things live. "Do not make me call you again." He ends the call. Kofi exhales slowly through his nose. You gave him 40 minutes. I gave him the feeling of 40 minutes, Zaire says. Our people will have everything frozen in 20. He picks up the folio from the shelf and holds it out to Teo. Keep this with you. You found it. You keep it. Teo takes it. He does not say anything. He's not sure what to say, not because the words are not there, but because the emotion moving through him right now is too big and too mixed to separate into anything clean. Relief is in it. Fear is in it. Something else is in it too. Something that lives in the space where Zaire is looking at him like he is not just the person carrying his children, but the person who kept his empire from being swallowed whole while he was sitting at a dinner table too confident in the people around him. That look will take Teo a long time to process. Damon appears in the archive room doorway. He takes in the room, Nadia seated, folio in Teo's hands, Kofi's expression, Zaire's posture, and does a fast, quiet calculation. Rashid? He asks. Gone, Kofi says. Not for long, Damon says. He holds up his phone. There is a photograph on the screen, a man in a dark jacket, caught mid-stride by what looks like a street camera. Blurry, but identifiable. He took a car service from the East Gate. Driver sent us the destination out of professional habit. He is at the Meridian Hotel downtown, room 412, and he has not checked out. Zaire nods once. Go. Damon goes. The archive room settles into a strange and exhausted quiet. The quiet that follows the loudest hour of a night that is not finished yet. Nadia is still at the table. She has her hands folded in front of her, and she is watching Zaire with the expression of a woman waiting to learn if the deal she just offered is going to be accepted or if she miscalculated the last move she had left. The communications you kept, Zaire says to her. Everything Seo Junho sent you. Where is it? Encrypted on a server I control, Nadia says. The access key is in my apartment. I can have it transferred to your legal team within the hour. Do it, Zaire says. He looks at Kofi. Get Marcus on the phone. Marcus Delacroix, their family attorney, the man who has been with the Ose operation since before any of the three brothers were old enough to sign their own names. The man who does not panic and does not sleep, and who once told Zaire that the difference between a crisis and a strategy is 12 minutes of clear thinking. Tell him everything. Tell him we need the full legal infrastructure wrapped around this before the sun comes up. Kofi is already dialing. Zaire walks to the doorway and stops beside Teo and looks down at him. Really looks. The way he almost never allows himself to look at Teo in the middle of everything, with all the business and the danger and the house stripped back to just the two of them for one single breath. You should rest, he says. I should, Teo agrees. He does not move. Zaire almost smiles. It does not fully arrive, but it almost does. When this is done, he says, and does not finish the sentence, leaves it open, leaves it there between them like a door that both of them can see. Teo nods. When this is done. He walks back down the corridor toward the main house, folio held against his chest, and behind him, the archive room hums with the sound of Kofi's voice on the phone, laying out facts in rapid, clean sentences. And underneath all of it, underneath the strategy and the legal machinery and the 40-minute countdown, there is one question that nobody has asked yet tonight. The question of what happens to the signing. Tomorrow, 9 in the morning. The park group representatives, the contracts, the ceremony that was supposed to formalize everything, and instead was going to formalize the end. Teo stops in the middle of the corridor. He thinks about Seo Junho, sitting in a car 3 miles away, calculating his next move. He thinks about Mr. Park Jin-ho, somewhere in the city, also calculating. Two men on the same side who have been moving the same pieces, and now both of them know the board is exposed. He thinks about Rashid at the Meridian Hotel. He thinks about the unlatched window in the study. He thinks about a man who sat in a chair and answered questions and gave them exactly enough truth to seem cooperative, while his exit was already set. And then Teo thinks about one thing Rashid said, and stops breathing for a second. He said he was told the deal was already decided, that everyone at the table had agreed to the real terms months ago. Everyone at the table. Teo turns around and walks back toward the archive room, fast now, his hand on the folio, because there is one more question that needs an answer before this night closes. If Rashid was told everyone had agreed, then who exactly told him that? And is that person still in this house? Teo does not knock this time. He pushes the archive room door open and says, "Rashid told you he was informed that everyone had already agreed to the real terms. Who gave him that information?" Nadia looks up. She knows the answer. Teo can see it on her face, the way certain knowledge sits behind someone's eyes when they have been waiting to see if the question would arrive. Seo Junho told him, Nadia says. But Junho did not have that information on his own. Someone inside the Osei operation confirmed it to Junho first. Someone who had been feeding him internal communications for months before I was ever approached. She pauses. Someone above my access level. Zaire goes still. Above your access level? Yes, Nadia says. I handled documents. I did not handle strategy. There is someone, was someone, feeding strategic intelligence, meeting outcomes, internal disagreements, the kind of information that told the Park Group exactly how to time their approach, exactly which vulnerabilities to press, exactly when the brothers were most distracted. She looks at Zaire carefully. You had a significant internal conflict around 8 months ago, a disagreement over whether to expand the freight operation into the Pacific Northwest. It lasted 3 weeks. By the end of it, you were not speaking to Kofi directly. The room shifts. Kofi is very still. That conflict was known inside the Park Group, Nadia says. Seo Junho referenced it specifically when he briefed me. He said the timing of the Korean approach was chosen because the 3 brothers were not fully unified. He said his source told him the cracks were wide enough to move through. Teo watches both brothers process this, watches the particular pain of it, not the anger, not yet, but the thing that comes before the anger, the thing that lives in learning that your most private moments were being watched and reported. The source, Zaire says. Do you have a name? No, Nadia says. Junho never gave me one. I think he protected it deliberately. But I can tell you this. The communications between Junho and his source went through a separate encrypted channel that none of the documents I handled were routed through. It was above the operation I was part of. Whoever it is, they are not small. Kofi sets his phone down on the table very slowly. He looks at Zaire, and the look between them is the look of 2 men who have fought 100 battles together, suddenly realizing the ground they were standing on had a different shape than either of them knew. 8 months ago, Kofi says quietly, the Pacific Northwest conflict. Yes, Zaire says. 3 people outside the family knew the full detail of that disagreement, Kofi says. Marcus, Aurelius, and Petra. The name lands like a stone into still water. Petra Okafor, the Osei brothers' chief of strategy, 12 years with the family, the woman who sits in every room where decisions get made, the woman who knows, more than anyone alive outside of the 3 brothers themselves, exactly how the Osei operation thinks. Teo has met her twice. Both times she was composed, warm, and watching everything. Zaire looks at Kofi for a long time and then he says, "Where is Petra right now?" Kofi picks his phone back up. He dials. It rings. It keeps ringing. It goes to voicemail. Kofi dials again. Voicemail again. He sets the phone down and looks at his brother and says nothing because there is nothing to say, that the silence is not already saying louder. Zaire turns to Teo. "The photographs on your phone. Send them to Marcus now, every page. And then, I need you to go somewhere safe in this house and stay there. Not because you are not—" He stops, resets, chooses the words differently. "Because what happens in the next hour is going to move fast, and I need to know where you are." Teo looks at him. "You need to know I am safe." "Yes," Zaire says, "just that, direct and undecorated." Teo sends the photographs to Marcus Delacroix's number. He looks at Zaire once more, and then at Kofi, and then he walks out of the archive room for the last time and heads toward the main staircase. He is halfway up the stairs when his phone buzzes. A text. Unknown number. The message is 4 words. "Leave the house now." Teo stops on the staircase. He reads it again. He looks up and down the empty stairwell. The house around him is quiet. The specific quiet of a building that is holding its breath. His hand goes to his stomach. He does not leave. He does not run. He turns around and walks back down the stairs and back down the corridor because, whatever this is, he is not running from it alone in the dark, carrying 3 lives and a folio full of documents that could bring down a billion-dollar conspiracy. But when he reaches the archive room door, it is open, and the room is empty. Zaire and Kofi are gone. Nadia is gone. On the work table, under the overhead light, there is a single piece of paper, handwritten, 4 lines. Teo reads it. He closes his eyes for exactly 1 second. He opens them. He walks fast now, not running, but the kind of fast that is one decision away from running, toward the security floor, toward Aurelius, toward the only set of monitors in this house that can tell him where everyone just went and why they left without a word. And behind him, at the far end of the East Wing corridor, a door that was closed an hour ago is now open. And through that open door, from somewhere outside in the dark, comes the sound of a car engine starting. Aurelius is not at the security monitors when Teo pushes through the door. His chair is empty. His coffee is still warm. One of the 3 screens is dark, deliberately powered down, not a malfunction. And on the center monitor, the East Gate camera feed is showing a vehicle moving slowly through the gate. Lights off, heading toward the road. Teo leans in and reads the plate. He does not recognize it. He photographs the screen with his phone before the vehicle disappears from the frame. The 3rd monitor is still active. It shows the front entrance camera and the interior of the main corridor, and the ground floor sitting room, and there, the sitting room. Zaire, Kofi, and Aurelius, all 3 of them, standing in a tight group with a 4th person Teo does not immediately recognize from the camera angle. He moves. He takes the back stairs to the ground floor, crosses through the kitchen, and reaches the sitting room doorway in under a minute. He stops at the threshold. The 4th person is a woman in a long gray coat. She is standing with her back to the door, facing the brothers, and she is speaking in a low and rapid voice that carries the specific energy of someone delivering information under pressure. On the low table in front of her is an open laptop and a phone and a stack of printed pages that look like they came off a fast printer in the last 20 minutes. Zaire sees Teo in the doorway. He does not tell him to leave. That is the answer to a question Teo did not ask out loud. The woman turns around. She is mid-40s. Sharp eyes. The kind of face that has been calm in difficult rooms for so long that calm has become the face. She nods at Teo once, not surprised to see him, and turns back to the brothers. "My name is Agent Camille Worthen," she says. Not for Teo's benefit. She already said it once. She is saying it again for the record. "I have been running a financial crimes monitoring operation connected to the Park Group's North American activities for 11 months. Tonight's events accelerated a timeline we were not planning to move on until next quarter." She taps the laptop. "We have Jinho in custody as of 40 minutes ago. He was picked up 3 blocks from the property, attempting to access a vehicle registered to a shell company we have had under surveillance since February." Kofi stares at her. "You have been watching this deal?" "We have been watching the Park Group's pattern of hostile acquisition through Translator fraud for 3 years," Worthen says. "Your operation is the 6th target. The previous 5 did not have anyone in the house who spoke Korean." She pauses. They lost everything. The weight of that drops into the room and stays there. 5 operations. 5 families or companies or empires that trusted the wrong person with the translation of the most important documents they ever signed. 5 outcomes that the Osei brothers just missed becoming the 6th of. Because of Teo. Zaire looks at him from across the room, and this time the look is not complicated at all. It is clear and direct, and it carries the full weight of what he understands without any of the words he does not yet know how to say. Teo holds the look for a moment, and then looks away because this is not the time, and both of them know it. "Petra Okafor," Zaire says to Worthen. Worthen nods. "We know. She has been on our secondary list for 4 months. We were not certain of her role until tonight. The vehicle that left through your east gate 20 minutes ago is registered to a holding company with her name as a silent partner. We have units on the route." A pause. "She will not reach wherever she is going." "She has been with this family for 12 years, Kofi says. His voice is flat. Not cold, flat. In the way that cold comes after the feeling burns out. "Yes," Worthen says. She does not add anything to that. She does not dress it up or soften it. She lets it be exactly as heavy as it is. Aurelius shifts beside her. "The communication channel Nadia described, the separate encrypted line between Petra and Junho, we have been trying to crack a channel matching that profile for 8 months. If Nadia can give us the access key to her server, we can cross-reference and close it tonight." "She will," Zaire says. "Good." Worthen closes the laptop. "The signing ceremony tomorrow morning will proceed as scheduled." Kofi blinks. "Excuse me?" "With modifications," Worthen says. "The Park Group's cooperative representatives, and there are some, people inside that organization who did not know the full scope of what Junho and Petra were doing, have already been contacted. A revised agreement is being drafted by your legal team right now. One that reflects the actual terms your companies discussed before the documents were corrupted." She looks at Zaire. "We need the signing to go forward because it closes the legal trap around every party who was complicit. If the ceremony gets canceled, 3 of our key targets walk away clean." Zaire is quiet for a moment. "You need us to finish the deal." "I need you to finish the right version of it," Worthen says. "The version your Omega translator was trying to get you to read in the first place." Another silence. Teo watches Zaire absorb this, watches the whole night compress into one moment of reckoning, the kind a man only gets once, where everything he missed and everything he was saved from and everything he still has sits in front of him at the same time. Zaire nods. We will be at the table at 9. Worthen picks up her laptop and her printed pages and looks at Teo with an expression that is not quite a smile, but is close. Your testimony will be required as part of the formal record. Your translation analysis of the 19 documents is the cornerstone of the fraud case. Teo straightens. I will be ready. She leaves. The room settles. The house around them is quiet in a completely different way than it was 3 hours ago. Not the held breath quiet of before, but the quiet that comes after the thing you were afraid of passes, and the air comes back. Damon walks in through the front entrance with his jacket open and his phone in his hand. He looks around the room. Rashid is in federal custody as of 10 minutes ago, he says. He cooperated immediately. He gave them Junho's full network inside the first 5 minutes. Damon looks at Teo. He said, and I am quoting directly, he said the only reason he did not try harder to stop it is because he never believed anyone in this house would figure it out. Nobody laughs, but something moves through the room, something light for just a moment, and Teo feels the baby shift again. A long, slow movement, and this time, it does not feel like fear. This time, it feels like relief so deep, it lives in the body before the mind. Kofi sits down in the nearest chair and puts both hands over his face and breathes. Just breathes. The sound of a man letting down a weight he did not realize he had been holding all night. Zaire crosses the room. He stops in front of Teo. He does not say anything right away. He looks at Teo the way he looked at him in the archive room hallway. That quieter register, that rarer thing. And then he reaches out and places one hand very carefully against the side of Teo's face. And his thumb moves once across Teo's cheekbone. And he says, I should have listened faster. Teo closes his eyes. You listened, he says. That is what matters. No, Zaire says. What matters is that you did not stop talking. Morning comes in through the sitting room windows like it has not been informed about the night. Gold light on the hardwood floor, the smell of coffee from the kitchen, the ordinary sounds of a house waking up that have no idea they are happening inside the aftermath of something that almost destroyed everything. Teo is at the kitchen table when Damon comes down first. Damon looks at him, at the folio on the table, at the untouched coffee cup, at the fact that Teo is clearly sitting exactly where he has been sitting for the last 2 hours, and does not say anything. He pours 2 cups, sets one in front of Teo, and sits across from him. They sit like that in silence for a few minutes. Are you scared? Damon asks. Teo thinks about it honestly. Not about the signing, he says. Not anymore. Damon wraps both hands around his cup. About what then? About after, Teo says. About what this house looks like when the emergency is over. When there is no deal to stop and no document to find and no reason for any of you to look at me the way you looked at me last night. He pauses. When it is just regular life, with 3 babies coming, and all of the things we have never talked about. Damon is quiet for a moment. Zaire looked at you last night the way he looks at things he plans to keep, he says. That is not emergency. That is just Zaire. Teo does not answer, but his hands stop pressing against the folio and settle flat on the table, and something in his shoulders eases by 1 degree. Kofi comes down 20 minutes later, dressed and sharp and operating on whatever private fuel the Osai brothers run on when they have not slept. He picks up Teo's untouched coffee, drinks half of it without asking, sets it back down and says, Marcus has the revised agreement ready. Worthen's people confirmed the park group's clean representatives will sign. We go at 9. And Petra, Teo says. Kofi's jaw tightens. She was picked up at 2:17 this morning. She is not going to trial for anything less than financial conspiracy and breach of fiduciary duty across 12 years of documented deception. He picks up Teo's coffee again, drinks the rest of it, sets the empty cup down. She asked if the brothers would visit her. What did you say? Damon asks. Kofi picks up the empty cup, looks at it, sets it down. He does not answer. That is the answer. Zaire comes down at 8. He is dressed like the night never happened. Dark suit, sharp collar, the precise presentation of a man who was built to walk into rooms and own them. But he stops when he reaches the kitchen and he looks at Teo first before he looks at anything else. And the look confirms what Damon said an hour ago. That is not emergency. That is just Zaire. Ready, Zaire says. Teo picks up the folio. Ready. The signing room is the formal meeting space on the ground floor. A long table, high ceilings, the kind of room that was designed to make contracts feel permanent. Agent Worthen is already there, standing to the side in a dark blazer. Present, but not central. The quiet infrastructure of accountability. Marcus Delacroix, silver-haired, reading glasses already on, the organized calm of a man who drafted the corrected agreement at 3 in the morning and does not look tired, stands at the head of the table. The park group's clean representatives, 3 people Teo has not seen before tonight, sit on the far side. They look like what they are, people who came to do legitimate business and found out somewhere around midnight that the company they work for had a layer they were not told about. They look uncomfortable and cooperative and relieved, in the specific combination that people wear when they have just been given away to not be destroyed by someone else's choices. The revised agreement is 47 pages. Marcus walks everyone through it, clause by clause, in English, and for each section, Teo reads the corresponding Korean text aloud to the park group representatives for confirmation. Not Rashid's version, the real version, the one that gives the Osei group exactly what was always discussed. The controlling shares in the Seoul Logistics Network, and nothing more and nothing less. It takes 90 minutes. When the last signature lands, Worthen closes her folder and nods once at Zaire, and something passes between them that is professional and final. The specific nod of 2 people who have just closed a case that almost did not close in the right direction. Marcus shakes everyone's hands. The park group representatives leave quietly. Worthen follows. And then, it is just the 4 of them in the signing room. Teo and the 3 brothers. Zaire sits down. He rarely sits when there is standing to be done. The fact that he sits means the thing that required standing is over. Kofi leans against the wall and looks at the ceiling for a moment, then looks at Teo. You know, he says, for someone who came in here 6 months ago on a 2-week contract, Kofi, Damon says. I am giving him a compliment, Kofi says. For someone who came in on a 2-week contract, you have cost us a remarkable amount of sleep and saved us an equally remarkable amount of everything else. He pushes off the wall and extends his hand. Thank you, directly, without any of the other things around it. Teo shakes his hand. Damon does the same and holds it a beat longer, and says nothing, because what needs to be said between them has never needed many words. Zaire stands back up. He walks to Teo and stops and looks at him for a long, open moment that has none of the controlled surface he carries in rooms full of other people. Just Zaire, the real version. When this is done, he says, repeating the 4 words from last night, the door he left open. I meant what I did not finish saying. I know, Teo says. I want to finish saying it, Zaire says. I know that too, Teo says. Zaire almost smiles again. This time it arrives, small, real, the kind that has nothing to perform and nowhere to be except exactly where it is. The baby moves, a strong, rolling shift, stronger than the small movements of the night, stronger than the anxious flutters of the hours before the dinner table. The kind of movement that announces itself, that says, "Here, I am here, pay attention." Teo puts his hand on his stomach and looks at Zaire and says, "They know you signed it." Damon laughs first, surprised, genuine, the best kind of laugh. Kofi covers his mouth, but does not quite manage to cover the sound. And Zaire looks at Teo's hand on his stomach, and the smile that was small becomes something else, something open, something that has been waiting under all that control and all those dark suits for the specific permission to exist. He puts his hand over Teo's, and the room holds that for a moment. 4 people and 3 unborn lives, and one night that almost ended everything, and instead ended here. 3 weeks later, Teo is sitting in the same kitchen. Different morning, the same gold light through the same windows, but something in the house has changed. Not in the walls or the furniture, but in the air, in the way doors open and voices carry, and people move through the space. Like something that was held tight for a very long time, finally loosened. The folio is in Marcus Delacroix's office now, locked in a fireproof safe alongside every document from the federal case. Rashid's cooperation led to the full dismantling of the Park Group's Translator fraud network. 4 additional cases reopened, 2 of the 5 previous targets pursuing civil recovery. So Jun-ho is in federal custody. Petra Okafor's trial date is set for spring. The Osai Group's controlling shares in the Seoul Logistics Network were officially recorded 2 weeks ago. The 30-year freight operation is intact. Every port, every warehouse, every contract. All of it still theirs. Nadia Eze accepted a formal cooperation agreement and testified for 12 hours across 2 days. She is not free of consequences. She will carry the weight of what she did for a long time, and she knows it. But she is alive, and she is out, and the information she held onto for 14 months with both hands turned out to be exactly as valuable as she believed it was. Teo does not know what he feels about her. He thinks he might not know for a long time. He thinks that is acceptable. The 3 brothers are at the table with him this morning. It does not always happen. Schedules are schedules. The operation demands what it demands. But this morning it happened, and nobody has said anything about it like it is special, which makes it feel more special than anything said aloud could. Kofi is reading something on his phone. Damon is eating with the focused attention he gives everything. Zaire has his coffee in both hands and is looking out the window at the backyard, at the morning sitting quietly in the garden that Teo chose the plants for in the 2nd month, before any of this, when he was just a translator trying to make a temporary house feel like it had living things in it. "I have been thinking," Teo says. All 3 of them look up. It is, Teo realizes, a little funny. 3 identical faces turning toward him at the same angle with the same focused attention. Like a question asked to one of them roots to all 3 simultaneously. "About what?" Damon says. "About names," Teo says. The table goes quiet. Not the tense quiet of the archive room or the loaded quiet of the signing room. This quiet is warmer than both of those, the kind that opens like a door. "We have been avoiding it," Teo says. "All of us. It has been 6 months, and we still call them the babies, like naming them makes it more real than we are ready for." Kofi sets his phone down. Zaire turns from the window. "I want to name them," Teo says. "I want to stop waiting for the right time because I have learned recently that the right time has a way of almost not arriving. And when it does arrive, you should not waste it. Nobody argues with that. They spend the next hour at the kitchen table, coffee going cold, morning going warm, arguing and laughing and occasionally disagreeing in the specific way that people disagree when they are not actually at odds, but are just enjoying the negotiation. And by the end of it, there are 3 names that belong to 3 people who are not yet in the room, but who will be soon, and who will grow up inside a house that their other father fought for while they were still small enough to be protected by his body alone. Teo sits back in his chair at the end of the hour and feels the weight of the last 6 months settle into something he does not have a word for yet. Something between peace and readiness. Something that is not the absence of difficulty, but the presence of people to move through it with. He thinks about the dinner table, about both hands slamming down on the mahogany, about crystal glasses shuddering, about a room full of power and money and danger, and one pregnant Omega who refused to sit down. He thinks about 3 men who, when it mattered, listened. That is not a small thing. In a world that is full of people who decide what something is worth before they hear it, 3 men who stopped and listened is not a small thing at all. Zaire looks at him from across the table and says, quietly, under the sound of Damon and Kofi still debating the 3rd name, "You know what I was thinking about last night?" "Tell me," Teo says. "I was thinking," Zaire says, "that the most dangerous thing that happened in the last 6 months was not Petra, not Junho, not Rashid." He pauses. "The most dangerous thing was that you almost did not walk into that dining room." Teo looks at him. "I stood outside the door for 3 minutes," Teo says. "I almost turned around 4 times." "What made you go in?" Zaire says. Teo is quiet for a moment. He puts his hand on his stomach. The same hand, the same place, the same gesture that has carried him through every moment of the last 6 months, when the way forward was not clear. "Them," he says simply. Zaire nods, like that is the only answer that ever made sense. Outside the window, the garden is green and quiet, and the morning is doing what mornings do, continuing, regardless, forward into whatever shape the day decides to take. And inside the kitchen, around a table with cold coffee and 3 names written on a napkin, 4 people sit in the ordinary gold light of something that almost was not and is. If this story moved you, if you held your breath at any point and did not realize it until just now, then you already know this channel is where you belong. Subscribe and turn on your notifications so you never miss a story that hits this hard. Stories that do not just entertain but stay with you, the kind you think about on the drive home, the kind that remind you why a single voice choosing to speak up changes everything. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell us what moment got to you. Tell us what you would have done standing outside that door. Your words down there are not just comments. They inspire the next person who reads them. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. We will see you in the next one.